All right. Well, good evening again, and we are going to be reviewing our SY23 school budget, and this is just going to be opportunity for me to share with everyone the funding allocation that was made for our school and how the money is planned to be spent. And of course, I feel like I'll tell you, Mr. Ridgeway, I feel like I talk through this stuff really fast. So if you ever have a question, just tell me because it's you and I right now. So when we met back in January, that was when I gave everyone opportunity to share their priorities for our upcoming school year. You'll see how that is built into our school's budget. Tonight is our community budget forum, and then we have a teacher team that meets for to review the budget, and that's pretty much it. Once it comes out of me, and I should also say, I've already gotten this approved through like our central office team as well. Once we finish this tonight, the final official budget for all the schools in Baltimore City isn't approved until like May, but they'll have everything that we are planning for and preparing for the upcoming year. So just by way of a breakdown, um, our funds, two-thirds of them come through the state of Maryland, through the taxes that we pay. Some of the funds come from Baltimore City. Last year, we received a lot of funds from the federal government. That's not the case this year, and you'll see, kind of where that falls, so to speak. The revenue is solely dependent upon the number of students enrolled in a school. So our funding, the funding always follows the students. And what's interesting about our particular school is it's really but so much square footage we have in our school, so it's but so many kids that we can have in our building. But actually, I like it that way. Um, so this year we had about 450 kids. We can max have about 500 kids. I've seen our school be close to like 475, and then when the pandemic happened, we dropped to about 430. This year, we are budgeted and projected to have again back to up to 450 kids. So, based on the survey data that we received, our priority was making sure that we had adequate staffing. Also, cleanliness was a top priority in advanced honors programming. So you'll see how this is built into the budget and the staffing that we have for the upcoming year. And everything that we do is always with the foundation of equity, making sure that we have fairness, every student get what he or she needs, as opposed to everyone getting just the same thing. So we do have some targeted staffing, targeted programs at our school to really support what we know every student needs. And what we know is based off, of course, our relationship and teamwork and partnership with families as well. In this past year, our goal was really big for ELA, so it's English Language Arts. We were looking to have at least 42% of students in KG5 who scored initially below, well below, to decrease that percentage. You may notice, for example, March being like Reading Month, Literacy Month, we're doing a lot of things to get kids to read. We definitely put a lot of things in place. You'll even notice about our tutoring that you'll hear me talk about because we really want to support students being able to read. So that's a huge priority for us. Um, and also, even in middle school, we use what's called the I Ready assessment to really evaluate how students are reading. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. So in K through 5, we use a test called Amplified. They're both eights. And in middle school, we use a test called the I Ready assessment. They use I Ready in elementary too, but we don't track or measure the performance in the same way that we do in middle school. For math, though, we do use I Ready across the board. to really help kids improve upon their already math stretch goals. And we are working hard to improve our attendance rate to be 93% or higher, which surprisingly and happily, we've been able to maintain 93% attendance so far, even when the pandemic was hitting the hardest. We were able to maintain it, so hopefully we'll be able to continue with that. Ultimately, the vision of our school is that we continue upon the rich tradition of excellence that we've had. We really do our best collectively to lead with and make decisions with the students' best interests in mind. We recognize that they are integral members of the school community, and Hamden in and of itself has a rich history, a challenging history, sometimes a sad history. But we know that the students that we have today will really be the leaders in the school community in the future, and we have to prepare them for the world to come. So ultimately, collectively, that's our really our charge and our mission and our vision to make sure that our young people are prepared to be successful and take care of us when we get older because they have the tools that they need to be successful. All right, so this past year, uh, we had just a little under $5 million. The majority of that funding goes to staffing. The majority of it, and I listed for you to see all the staff positions that we have in place. Last year, well, I should say this current year, I highlighted the reading intervention teacher because that was a new position that we were able to add to our school because of some of the SR2, which was the federal funding that we have received. So we were able to add that because again, reading is the foundation of who we are. So we were able to add that. And then last summer, Bull Farms gave us the donation of the outdoor playground. So that was something cool that we had in our school as well. So on to the fun stuff. Let's talk about this year. So for the upcoming school year, we did receive an increase in funding. You may have heard about the Kerwin Commission, the Kerwin funds that over the years they've really advocated and lobbied on the state level for more funds to come to the city schools, and that indeed happened. So I'm gonna kind of go back for a little bit. So last year, you see that we were at about 4.9 million, where this year we're at 5.1 million. So across the board, all the students, the per pupil allocation increased. Our school did not, though, receive additional funds that were earmarked for schools that are in what's called concentration of poverty zones. Our school does not fit in that category. So some schools may have received a ton more money. We were not one, but we still received a boost. With the boost in funding, we were able to maintain the reading intervention teacher that we have, and we were able to add in the early literacy tutors. So right now we have two folks, Mr. Smith and Miss Wilson, who are tutoring students, targeted students in grades kindergarten 1. We do have additional funding available for a tutor in grade 2 if someone was interested in taking on that position. Funding is available for that. And the funding also, I should explain, shift a little bit because as opposed to saying the money still follows the student, but as opposed to saying it's like a base funding, so to speak, is more about the positions that we have. So we have a number of defined locked positions, regardless of, I'm gonna give you a good example. Actually, I'll talk about Connor. Like with Connor, regardless of.
Actually, I'm sorry, could we, since we are recording and since there are other folks on the call, could we not speak about him specifically?
Sure, well, I'll talk about students.
Thank you.
This applies to a number of students, not just
Thank you.
So we have a number of students who receive additional support services, and that's a locked position. And that's all. That's all. I was going to say. We also last year received additional what's called hold harmless funding because we actually did not meet our enrollment projection. We were projected last year to have about 440 kids, and we had about 410. So it would have been a decrease of about $300,000. It would have been about four teachers lost, but we fortunately we were that those funds were granted to our school. We were not penalized for them, and we won't be penalized this upcoming year. But we still don't on the hook to making sure we meet our 450 student enrollment projection. And hello to those who joined. Some of the things that are really important to us that we've been able to make progress with over the years, and we're going to continue to do under the spirit of inventing the future. We are always looking to increase our student enrollment. We have a full catalog of honors programming in middle school for grades for subjects ELA, math, social studies, and science. I'm excited because next year in eighth grade we'll go back to having a class of Algebra 1, which we had a couple of years ago, and then with the pandemic we saw again a decrease in students move for various reasons, so we were not able to have that course, but we will have it next year, which is really exciting. Also, over the years, I've been principal 5 years in Hampden. Recess has always been a priority for our school, so being able to maintain the funding for the recess monitor is key, and we still will have that. We have built in our life skills program to happen at Hampden, which started at this point maybe, it started last year virtually. This year is the first year in person. So we can say 2 years, but really one because it was like our first year having it in the building. We still believe always in having strong family, college, and career partners. Technology is totally the way of the future. Our district is going one-to-one when it comes to students who are having devices. So we want to make sure everyone has what they need to access technology. We are still maintaining our 93% attendance. And I'm very, very excited to say that both on the student side and on the teacher side, with our SGA different avenues, we've had a number of strong opportunities for students and teachers to demonstrate leadership. So that is it. I told you I talk really fast. I'm kind of finished. So ask me questions. Anyone, ask me questions and I'll be glad to answer.
So one question I had, and this is partly a question, partly a comment, and you've probably heard this from me before. I know that there's no music education program at Hampden, and you mentioned that that is not something that has been in the budget. I was wondering if that was something that you could talk a little bit more about in terms of kind of how that gets decided and whether that's something that could potentially become more of a priority in future years. Because to be very honest, the fact that there's no music program at all is something that I find very unfortunate.
Sure, I'll be glad to share. So, fine arts as a category is something that I definitely have to make sure is included in our school's budget. But our fine arts comes through our art teacher as opposed to music teacher. So, in order for the fine arts criteria to be met, I can choose between one or the other. And it's been art with Miss Curry for the past number of years because that has really been, every time I give a survey and I'm able to get feedback about what do folks value, it seems to be art. And so I try my best to supplement with music, but I've definitely heard that art has been a priority. So in order for us to have a music teacher, that will mean that we would no longer have an art teacher, in short.
And is that something that you would consider, maybe not for next year's budget since this is already more or less set, but for the following year? Are you going to continue to check in with families to make sure that that priority still holds true?
Yeah, absolutely. I ask it every year. So what you saw of me in previous years, what you saw of me this year, I do the same thing to find out the pulse of what
Mhm.
folks are looking for. What I'm thinking though, to kind of go a little deeper, I can consider doing. I think I can do it. It's just ask that targeted question specifically to get
Mhm.
feedback about it. But unfortunately, our school's budget would only afford one, so I can't have both.
Mm.
So it would be art teacher or music teacher.
Yeah, I think my concern comes from the fact that I personally, as somebody, because I come from a music background,
Okay.
I don't view music in terms of like being an activity. I view it as an important part of education, like a well-rounded education. And the fact that it's absent from the curriculum year after year after year means that these kids are basically missing out on an entire section of a well-rounded education and will have nothing when they get to middle or high school in terms of basic music education, and that is a concern to me. So
I understand. I definitely respect that. So I will, like I said before, I will definitely be soliciting feedback from folks. But I just know over the years, the art, when it comes to fine arts, when I've been asked to choose, so to speak, it's been definitely the fine arts, the visual arts has been one
yeah,
that has kind of risen to the top.
yeah, it has to be one or the other.
No, I know. Well, and this is a kind of another piece too. I should explain even deeper when it comes to, because I don't really consider those things like supplementary services. I think it's a part of a, like as you said, a well-rounded curriculum. Um, we incorporate health and wellness with our PE teacher, who also is a health teacher, and we have fine arts. The third priority that I've always heard is recess, and so any additional funds, so to speak, I've used towards recess. So that would be kind of the question I would ask is, would we want to have a recess monitor or a part-time music teacher? And that's definitely something that's open for discussion. But just so you know, I wouldn't be able to afford everything. Library is really by what we call COMAR by state law. We're required to have libraries. I won't be able to really change that. Um, our reading intervention teacher that again came out of just the need that we saw as a result of the pandemic when it came to students' academic abilities and how they needed literacy support. So that's where that came from. And everything else is pretty kind of standard, so to speak, when it comes to school.
Dr. Foster,
Yes,
hi.
ma'am.
Hi, it's Nicole. Sorry, I can't put my camera on for some reason, but
Oh, no problem, no problem.
I just wanted to join in about the music conversation. And I was
Sure.
just curious because I mean, before my kid went to school, we would go to the public library, the Enoch Pratt Library, which has amazing programs, and it would be like half music time and then half story time. And I guess I understand that, the funding is stretched and that recess is a priority in art. And I'm grateful we had those two things. But I guess I was thinking, is there not a way to include music, particularly in the younger grades, at a certain way, such as doing some songs in the library time. And even if the librarian people don't feel comfortable doing it, maybe occasionally bringing a special guest from a public library. Like there's Miss Gloria over at Govans, and she does a phenomenal job with sign language and all these like cute little songs. And they even have special guests where they have like spoken word artists and other people that come and do these like really entertaining poetry, with some music thrown in or some like folk music stuff. I just think there's so many programs within the city, like PJ Library is another group that does like Jewish stuff. Like maybe they could come and do some songs for the kids, especially pre-K and K. Even in the classroom, maybe there would be opportunities to have special guests. There just seems like there's so many opportunities within the city, with Peabody and the BSO. I go to the library with my kid frequently, and before COVID, especially, there was always like a violin, duo or something randomly at the library. And we would just watch them for 20 minutes. So I just feel like even if we don't have a salaried person who's doing music, there's got to be ways that we could, through classrooms or through library time, have more finger play, sign language, music that's incorporated within the lessons. And it would just only help the kids kind of stretch. The only music that I've really seen is maybe at lunchtime. And oftentimes it's just like this, like really frenzied YouTube videos that are shown. It's just, I've never heard classical music or jazz or bluegrass in the halls of Hamden. And I guess I'm just trying to think there's got to be other ways that we could maybe incorporate. And maybe it's happening in some of the individual classrooms, but I just feel like maybe it could happen a little bit more and it could only enrich the school.
So you know what I love is that I saw the comment that you know Miss Gloria, love Miss Gloria. I've never met her. I would love to, right? So that's just it. I think it's all about making those connections. I know I've been following and kind of secretly from afar gazing at this guy, and I think it's a program called Sprocket. Have you all heard of Sprocket?
Yeah, I have. Yep, I follow
Um,
him
because
too.
I actually this week have sent him a message out to see what kind of program he can do. I know we've had steel drums play in the fall. I know we had jazz, but like I that's kind of how it happens for me. Like as folks like with steel drums with jazz in the park, it was because I knew them and I was like, okay, come do it, and it's kind of organic, you know, but I still appreciate it. So if anyone knows of how I could connect with somebody like Miss Gloria, I'll be open to it. I don't think it's for lack of desire. It's just about making those concrete connections.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there are options too for volunteering, even because exposure to different kinds of music is great. Um, Also, so is teaching basic music theory, and if there are volunteers in the community who could even hold sessions or seminars on basic music theory, that's what I mean about like a well-rounded education and seeding the beginnings of that while kids are young, and I think it's
Sure. Yeah, I'm totally open to it. I know, and I mean, it's funny. I can think about the things we have on horizon. None of them are directly about music. I know that in April we're going to be starting up a spoken word poetry workshop that's going to happen. Like I'm open. It's just all about making the connections. So if you know of anybody, by all means, I'm glad to really help play it out and see it through because I think our kids will really benefit from it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foster.
No problem. No
yeah.
problem.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate you hearing me on that.
No problem. No problem. No problem. So, like, seriously, I'm trying to think. I think that's kind of it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a survey and I'll put the link in the chat if you would like to share any additional feedback. I know we had a conversation, but if you would like to have any additional feedback, you you are welcome. But that's pretty much it. I feel like a school budget is like this isolated thing that I just kind of sit in a corner and do. And people don't always know all of what goes into me doing it. So I always appreciate the opportunity to um, to really speak and share because I don't get a chance to do that a lot.
Well, I thank you very much for sharing it. This is very interesting to me to see.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's interesting. I don't know why my thing is so big, why my link thing is so big in the media chat, but it's there. But that's essentially it. I mean, I would also like to say that over the 5 years that I've been in Hamden, every growth, every success we've had have come through dialogue and conversations just like this. So the more that we can keep that going, I'm totally open and welcome to making that happen. Yeah, I don't know why my link is so big. But if you click it, I think it should be just fine. So I'm gonna say thank you and all that stuff. So folks, I can end the recording and I will share my link here. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Of text for it.
Let me try to open it and make sure I can actually. So it says that I need permission.
Oh, goodness. All right,
So
let me do that. Let me do
it might be
that.
something where maybe you just need to share it out
I think it
in an
is. I
email or
think it
something.
is.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. It's so crazy because it told me I need the permission. She was like, wait a minute, I'm the one who made it. Why do I need permission? So that's what I'll do. I will stop this.
Well, I'm